What's up, team? Today, I'm going to address what I've learned over the last 30 years and how I finally come to the conclusion that pretty much most of it is a lie. And then we're going to bring on Buck Sexton of the Clay and Buck Show. He's going to talk about how the European Union is on the precipice of potentially getting everybody else into World War III. This is the David Rutherford Show. When I was a kid, one of my favorite books of all time was by John Lewis Carroll. It was Alice in Wonderland. Now, before you start going, wait a minute, how does a frogman love Alice in Wonderland? I was a kid, right? And what I loved about it was the animation idea. I loved the story of this, person who falls into this great world and discovers all these crazy things about dancing cards and talking rabbits and my personal favorite, the Mad Hatter. Hell, I've got a Mad Hatter tattoo on my side right here who's got holding an MP5 in a med bag because I used to want to be the Mad Hatter in the teams, right? But that just goes to show you how much I love this classic fairy tale, this classic children's story, because of what it means. It means the proverbial fall down the rabbit hole. Now, every human being has those falls, right? We have them when we're young, we have them when we're old, but they always seem to happen. And what I want to do as we launch this show, right, this new show, I want to tell you about my journey down the rabbit hole, like obviously. So here I am, I'm in my fourth year at college at Penn State University, where I'd gone to play lacrosse there, and I'd been kicked off the team. I was no longer on the team. I was kind of isolated. I wasn't doing well. I was battling depression. I was a mess. But thankfully, like I was an art major with a minor in poetry. Now, listen, I know you're laughing out there because everybody does, but don't ever forget, I am a hippie who can kill you, okay? So as I'm in my art history courses, I'm in my humanities courses, the one thing that begins to happen is that I'm reading all these incredible works by Nietzsche, Camus. I'm reading these great storytellers of all time. And what is taking place is the recognition, the reinforcement of that thing that influenced me as a kid with Alice in Wonderland is really the need or the desire to go out on my own quest. And that's what I chose to do. So I dropped out of Penn State. I joined the Navy to go be a Navy SEAL. Now, mind you, I thought the rabbit hole was a lot more like the cartoon than it actually was in this particular case. And so very quickly did I find having my ass handed to me was not the same as reading a fairy tale, right? But the reality of it is I really started to begin to learn that my impression of the world wasn't exactly what it should be. And that the idea of the illusion of what it meant to be an elite fighter or an elite commando, man, I had no idea how hard it was going to be. And so that was really the beginning of this whole nursery rhyme getting torn apart from my consciousness. Now, fast forward where it jumped into hyperspeed was on my first and only combat deployment in the SEAL teams in the summer of 2002 to Afghanistan, when I quickly realized that fighting wars isn't just that. It's not going after the enemy. And man, not almost no other time in our history of our nation did we so clearly know who the enemy was. But as I'm over there, immediately we begin to realize that politics play a role. And so I remember going through all of the different ups and downs emotionally of, oh, you can go operate here, or you can't do this, or there's the new loyal Jirga, and we need to support Karzai. And I'm, here I am in part of the E5 mafia, and I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. Why? We know where they are, we know where they are. Let us go do our jobs. But that wasn't the case. And so that really triggered this accelerated descent into potentially what might be the lies that we were forced to believe, or the lies that we were convinced were real, right? Now, down that rabbit hole, I had got out a little bit short after that, about a year after that, and went to work for Blackwater, and again, that's where this thing jumped into light speed, and I began to realize, oh my God, because my second deployment to Afghanistan, in fall of 2005, here I am working with the Afghan counter drug commandos, and I'm mentoring them on missions, and what we're doing is we're running missions against fictitious people. Mind you, I'm like, wait a minute. And I'm working with DEA fast teams and they're squared away, but I'm like, wait a minute. Does this make sense to anybody? Like we're doing these big ops and there's nobody here. I mean, there's nobody even in the compounds we're raiding. And again, that light bulb is like flickering even more. Well, after I left them, I started my company, Frog Logic Concepts, and my initial quest was to work with kids to try and lift kids up and give kids this whole idea of self-confidence, right? What's going to lift them up to get them in the fight and to be able to confront that negative insurgency of their life? Well, as soon as you start to get into how under attack our children are with, obesity, with poor school performance, with the wrong role models. I mean, that was another shocking reality myself. I'm like, wait a minute, where did all the kids' role models go out there? Where did all the young men role models go? Like, where are the dudes that they're supposed to look up to, like I did as a kid, man? I tell you what, John Wayne, man, that dude was a god in my house, right? I mean, holy cow! You have Rambo, you have Commando, you have Die Hard, man. These were the things that lifted me up every day to want to become a courageous man, right? Well, after the economy collapsed, I said, all right, I gotta get going in a whole nother way. And thankfully, I had some people reach out, recruited me to go work for the Central Intelligence Agency. And so for 2 years, I trained case officers how to better integrate with JSOC units downrange, because the first time since Vietnam, they were really co-located on the same forward operating bases. And then so for 2 years I did that, and then for 2 years I deployed with case officers and helping them manage their operations from a security and tactical perspective. If you saw the movie 13 Hours, that's what I did. In fact, after a year in Afghanistan, a year in Pakistan, my next duty station was going to be Libya. Fortunately for me, it didn't turn out that way, but unfortunately for my friends, Ty Woods and Glenn Doherty and some other of my folks, Oz and some of the other guys that were there, and Tonto and Boone and everybody, man, it was one of the worst days of my life. And that was also a massive wake-up call for me. Like, wait, what are you telling me? There were Americans in distress saving other Americans' lives and nobody went to support them? Now, that was a big one. That was a huge one. And so I just kept my head down. I was like, no, this is a one-off. This isn't what it is. And I started, speaking professionally at that time and really enjoyed this beautiful career of being a motivational speaker, a lot in the financial services industry. But I worked with all these different Fortune 500 companies, from, Coca-Cola to Comcast Cable to Revlon, you name it. I've worked with them. But I've also worked with the largest family-owned pig farmers out there too. So I don't care, man. I just want to help people improve on performance and motivate them, right? That's what's kind of what drives me in life. And then something else happened. Now, luckily, I had reached this really beautiful spot. At the time, I was on this great podcast with, I'd started my first podcast called Navy SEAL Radio in 2013. And then a good friend of mine, Marcus Luttrell, asked me to join him on a podcast. We called it the Team Never Quit podcast, along with the Wizard. And everybody hopefully remembers the Wizard, man. I love you, Wizard, if you're out there. And we delivered this really positive content of people telling their greatest never quit stories. And again, I was like, man, I was reinvigorated. We were doing well. America seemed like it was on good stand, with good ground. We were positive with these stories. And, even in 2018, which was one of my best years I've ever had in my life, right? I met my new wife. I won a World Series with the Boston Red Sox, man. I was riding this absolute tsunami of positivity, right? I was kicking the shit out of the negative insurgency at that time. And then 2018, 19, Trump's attacks began to come out, the story behind it, and what Russiagate was really about. And this unjust fabricated allegations of him being a Russian asset. I'm like, wait a minute. Are you serious? This guy was the most beloved human being in the country. I mean, look at all the friggin' rap songs that were praising Trump. And now all of a sudden he's a racist. Now all of a sudden he's a bigot. Now all of a sudden he's a direct threat to national security. I was like, this ain't right, man. It doesn't feel right. And I bet if you're like me, you had that spidey sense tingling as well, too. Well, guess what? Now I was about really ready to really fall down to the depths, right? The Dante's ninth gate of the rabbit holes of rabbit holes. And then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, the whole world changed in that moment. And I really believe that's when the lies, the veil of those lies came crashing down around those who have been perpetrating them to us for a long, long time. Right? You're going to kill grandma. Don't go outside, right? You got to wear a mask. 6 feet distance. Yeah, we know, all made up. And everybody out there was like, this doesn't make sense. And then that emerged that summer, all these riots in the streets. Oh, you can't go outside, but you can burn down a city. Now we're starting to hit what is really, in all conscious terms, is basically a modern Marxist revolution taking place. And that's when I started to really wake up in ways I never thought I would before. Because that summer, my business had collapsed. I had lost a ton of speaking work. I was supposed to work with the Minnesota Twins that year. That collapsed and all this other great stuff. Thankfully, I pivoted online. We were starting an online training company. And then about a month and a half before the elections, they canceled me. That's right. They canceled RUT, the hand grenade of positivity. I'd never been political my whole life, ever. I'd never talked trash about people. I'd never called out injustices. All I cared about was making sure that you were motivated every day, to make sure that you understood that no matter how hard you got kicked in the teeth, there was something to anchor your heart to. There was something that was going to save you. But guess what? When I was canceled unjustly, that about destroyed me. Right? I got locked out. I lost access to about 150,000 people. And after 300 plus attempts to figure this out, nobody responded ever. Now, imagine, 15 years of content creation, all of a sudden switched off, lights off, no explanation. And meanwhile, I'm feeling this whole feeling that the world is changing. Something's taking place. And that solidified it. Now, fortunately for me, I had some really amazing, good, solid teammates in my life that got behind me, lift me out of my hole, Richie and Sean and Mark P. and there's this whole slew of people that just leaned in and really pulled me out of the abyss I was in, because I was like, how can this be real? And one of them, my friend Paul, he's the one who said, hey, man, come to work with me. I think you'll love this company, very hardworking, very dialed in, conservative group. And I went to work, and he saved my life. He saved my family. He saved my career. And I got back on my feet. Now it's taken me a while to get there. And in all that time, what else did we see? We saw craziness take place with COVID shots. We saw the insanity of the attacks on Trump with the judicial system, the waging war against him, and we saw him try to assassinate the guy twice, right? Meanwhile, you're telling me that I'm a domestic terrorist. You're telling me my views as a Christian, I'm a white nationalist Christian supremacist? Man, to hell with you. That's all bogus. That's not true. I know what I believe in. I know who I believe in, and I know that I'm a good person, right? But all that didn't change the fact of what I was seeing. And so now where I'm at is out of the blue, and don't even don't even get me started on the Afghan withdrawal, because that was like a dagger in my heart. I never had the opportunity to go serve in Iraq with all the incredible human beings that served and died over there, a lot of my friends. But I was in Afghanistan quite a few times. And when we pulled out of there, it was proof positive that the people in charge who made that decision, they don't give a damn about me. And most importantly, they didn't give a damn about my dead friends. And that was it. That was the last straw. That broke my back. And it broke a lot of the rest of us from the GWAT as well, too. But here's what I'm going to tell you. We're not going to get out there and lay down. We're not going to get out there and bitch and moan. We're going to get out there. We're going to raise Cain, but in a positive way. And so, as I sit there and my Frog Logic podcast had been going, but it was struggling. It was struggling to get it done and get it up and running again. And so I had this defeat, but I knew inside me, man, that God was going to serve me up. He was going to deliver me something special. He was going to deliver me an opportunity of a lifetime. And you know what? About a month and a half ago, that happened. My friend Buck Sexton reached out to me on a phone call one Tuesday. I'll never forget. He said, "Hey, Rut, what's up, buddy?" And I'm like, "Buck, my man, what's up? When are we going shooting again, dude?" Because I love, shooting with him and his brothers. And he said, "Hey, I got a question for you." And I was like, "What's up, Buck?" He goes, "Do you have any interest in getting behind the microphone again?" And there you have it. That's at the bottom of the rabbit hole. That's at the bottom where you come to a conclusion. You come to a realization. You receive the blessings of something that's bigger than you. An opportunity presents itself to you. And so Buck said, "Hey, man, as long as you can convince Julie, the CEO of Premier Networks at iHeartRadio, that you're all in on this, man, I think you're good to go." We had that call. Next thing I needed to do was find someone that was going to be able to help me do this. And man, I found the greatest person on the planet that could possibly ever be able to help me climb back out of that rabbit hole so that I could get back on a microphone and start delivering those flashbangs of truth. I found my friend Jordy. And so Jordy, I want to introduce you to everybody out there too, buddy. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I want to introduce you to Mr. Jordy Long, man.
Hey, everybody. It's an extreme honor to be here, and I just am so excited to work with David and figure out how to make just the best show possible for everyone. And all of the things that you were saying, we need to talk about these things. We need to give those flashbangs of truth, like you were saying, to the world. And I'm just excited to be a part of it and get this going, man.
Awesome. So our mission for you is we are going to try and consolidate and contextualize this tsunami of information that you're trying to deal with every day across all social media, across everywhere you find news, you find content, wherever. Our job is to consolidate that, contextualize it, apply some common sense with some critical thinking in order for you to have the tools that you need to invoke that courage inside you so that you can join the fight against that negative insurgency so that you too can start throwing those flashbangs of truth. All right, my man, what do you think? I think that's enough preaching on my soapbox, brother. I think what we need to do now is, we obviously the first thing of all we got to do is we got to bring Buck Sexton on so we can thank him properly and we can talk about some serious things going on in Europe right now. What do you think, Jordy?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's bring him on.
Booyah. I hope you're digging the show so far. But before we go on, I really want to tell you one distinguishable thing that I know is true, and that everything is better with hot salt. Yep. This is all about Firecracker Farm hot salt. Listen, I've known Alex and his family for a couple years now, and I've met this great man through this other charity that He's a big part of Operation 300 by Billy Vaughn and his family, about Aaron Vaughn, who died in Extortion 17. And so at this charity event, I'm out there teaching shooting with Jared Hudson and Eddie Gallagher and all these badasses around. And this dude, man, comes up, man, and he's got the most tricked out guns I've ever seen. And I said, hey, how's it going? Next thing you know, we're 2 years later, and the guy I call, who I want the deepest metaphorical, metaphysical insight of life, is Alex, who owns and runs Firecracker Farm. Now, he's taken that intelligence and he has generated one of the greatest hot products in history. I guarantee it. And I know this because every single morning when I have my 3 eggs and bagel, man, I'm dosing it with all different kinds of firecracker salt, right? Firecracker Farm salt. Now, this thing is cool as hell. It comes in this titanium steel salt shaker that grinds it right there for you. Beautiful product, packaging's delivered. But the kicker to this sucker is what he puts in it on his farm that's on his very own house. Now, he mixes in 3 different, he calls them the 3 kings, if you will. That's a ghost pepper, a reaper pepper, and a scorpion pepper, man. Now, when you want to talk hot, he's got this killer hot scale on his website, which is firecracker.farm. Again, firecracker.farm. He's got this hot scale. And the top of it is the sun, right? And the bottom of it is Tabasco. And so as you go down this list, it's normalized violence is the hottest, right? He's got snake eater down low. That's the one I like a lot. He's got apocalyptic for your fancy schmancy guacamole days, right? He's got hotter stuff. He's got the Firecracker Farm Pineapple Express. He's got the Lambo Lemon Drop, the Mermaid Mustache, which is a beautiful, beautiful design. Just love that. And so these are the variations of hot salt that you can get from Firecracker Farm. Now, here's what I want you to go. Now, again, I mean, everybody reads, and this dude has had ads on my best friend Sean Ryan's show. He's been on Joe Rogan's. He's been on Tucker's. He's been on Megan's. He's been on them all, right? But what I'm telling you, man, is just order the stuff. I promise you, you're going to get this beautiful box. You're going to open up these badass salt shaker things. You're going to press that on your eggs. You're going to feel the heat. It's a great heat. It's like that good positive heat that you love on your food, right? It reminds me of when I used to eat over in the Middle East, that little punch in my mouth that I love, right? So if you're looking for that fired up punch to your mouth, go to firecracker.farm, type in your promo code is RUT15. That's R-U-T, David Rutherford, RUT15, and you're going to get 15% off your first order, all right? So, again, let me tell you, this is a family-owned business. It's Alex and his family making this stuff. They nurture these beautiful pepper plants from little seeds, and then they dump it into salt shakers to burn the hell out of your mouth. I'm telling you what, check out firecracker.farm, RUT15. Your mouth will thank me forever. Hoo-yah. When you start something new, you have those little bit of butterflies that kind of spin over and over and over and around. But in my case, man, those butterflies, it is one of the most powerful feelings I've ever had in my entire life. And the reason these feelings are as good as they are is because of my good friend Buck Sexton. And so, the only reason I'm sitting here right now in front of all you and coming to you with my new show is because of this man, Buck Sexton. So, Buck, man, I just want to come out of the gate and just say from the bottom of my heart and Jonna's heart and Jordy's heart, thank you so much for this opportunity, brother.
Oh, man, it is my honor to both be your friend and to get to work with you now on this project and see how this is going to take off. And just, when this podcast is super big time, just don't forget who your friends were in the early days. Okay, that's my only request. You know what I'm saying? Like, hopefully in a year, he's still going to be returning my text when I'm like, can we go shooting? So that's my plan.
Well, you know what my weak spot is. It's to go shooting, right? But unfortunately, with 4 daughters and soccer, lacrosse, sometimes I have to bail on you, which I'm sorry. But I owe you one soon for real.
Anytime.
Awesome. Well, listen, one of the things that I think is what I love so much about you and Clay, and you're able to give such a great overview of bigger topics. You're able to consolidate a bunch of ideas down and condense them in a way where the audience really understands, the power of the information and how to understand it in a better way. And so one of the big things that's really just, I think, on my mind, I know it's on the mind of everybody else that's out there, is really what's been going on in Europe right now. I think, we see all these populist leaders out there that are essentially in my mind, they seem like they're under attack from all different formats, whether it was Bolsonaro down in Brazil, and then now we saw just this past week, Le Pen has been indicted. What's your take on why this is taking place? Just from where do you think why is, I guess, they or them or whatever they are, right? Why are they so afraid of populist leaders?
Well, it's fascinating because you would think that in democracy, populism, right? Demos from the ancient Greek, the people, right? Of the people. And you think, hold on a second, if a movement is popular, then it should do well in a democracy. And if a movement is trying to be rooted in really a majoritarian view of what's best for a society, isn't that what a democracy is supposed to capture within the guidelines of, voting under certain situations at certain times? And right, there's always rules. It's never just like whatever the mob wants in the moment. But if democracy is allergic to populism, we need to ask why. And in the Western world, that certainly, which is really where we have the most of the functional democracies, or in our case, a republic, that seems to be the case. I mean, I'm trying to see if I can pull up the full list, because think about this, Dave. You have to remind yourself of how many places this has been going on, how many places there have been efforts to ban these. Okay, here you go. So 3 NATO nations this month alone this month, right? We're not talking about last decade. This month have banned either the chief opposition party or the chief opposition leader, or a combination of the two. Romania has banned its opposition leader. Brazil, you mentioned Bolsonaro. France, that was a big one because, we think of countries like we kind of rank them in a hierarchy of importance, at least to us, in terms of foreign relations. France, a big deal. Moldova, not as big a deal, but they banned their opposition party. Turkey has banned their opposition party. Now, Turkey is always, interesting side note, really one of the original deep states. I think it was called the Derin Devlet in Turkish, or whatever, that's the transliteration. It's a real thing in Turkey, right? The Turkish military and the Turkish, military industrial complex can just step in and be like, yeah, no, we don't like what's going on here. We're going to get rid of whoever. There have been so many coups in Turkey over the last 100 years, you can't even keep track of it. And then, of course, America, where they tried to ban Trump. Oh, and Germany, where they tried to ban the
party.
AfD.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And we've even seen him go after the prime minister in Italy, too, recently. And to the fact where she actually, I think just last week, came out and said, listen, we're going to side with America. That's where we want to be. For me, when you see this list and it just keeps going, it makes me start to try and understand, all right, what's at stake here?
Well, think about this, right? The notion of nationalism has somehow gotten a negative connotation for a long time, right? To say that you're a nationalist, and really what we've grown up in, Dave, your generation, our generation, is a world in which the ruling elites have made this pitch to all of us, and it's not even really a pitch, have sort of demanded an obedience, a fealty to an idea. Right. Yeah, demanded it, forced it on us is a much better way of putting it, that you're not allowed to think about your nation as something that is more than just an economic zone and some series of treaties with other countries that you never really get to weigh in on or understand. Basically just like, shut up. The adults are in charge, and the adults go to Davos, and the adults go to the UN, and they do this stuff, right? And you should never ask, hold on, if I have obligations to the state, and if I have a connection to my people, whether it's Americans in our case, or Brazilians or the French, right? I mean,
The Irish.
The Irish, or what does that mean in the context of how I want my leadership to function, not in this collectivist, in concert, whatever all of us together decide, right? And so that I think is a big part of this, is just the awakening that why should being we could say patriotism, right?
Right.
Well, how is patriotism as an American different from nationalism? Like, to be a patriot as an American means you love, I mean, Dave, you were in combat zones, right? Like, you picked up guns and said, I will die if need be for my country. Well, you would have felt very differently, I think, if it was, I will die if need be because some EU bureaucrats in Brussels say that it would be worthwhile for me to be engaged in, like, the more
in Ukraine, right? Or I'm sitting there going to church with my family, and a little minivan walks up with a bunch of dudes in multicam, right? They come in, yank me out, and stuck me in that van. Next thing I know, I'm in the trenches 3 weeks later after getting trained by a bunch of French soldiers or EU or British soldiers now out of Poland, and it's almost, and to go back to what you were chatting about in terms of that collective oppression, right? If we're in charge, we're forcing the hand. You guys just recognize that we're a melting pot. That whole idea, we're gonna generate a new patriotism, a new loyalty that's to the greater sovereignty of a European Union, right? An American Union, right? An African Union. And I think what's really got me and what really scared me in the last, 2 weeks really was watching, Marcone and Starmer come out and really help Zelensky, who, by the way, has shut down all opposition party, hasn't had an election, the whole deal. We know that. But now they're coming in to sabotage or to torpedo the negotiations going on with Rubio and the State Department, because they're saying, no, we're ready to put some boots on the ground. Do you believe, is that an idle threat, or do you think there's any validation to what they're suggesting they're going to do?
I wouldn't say it's idle. I would say it's improbable, but they've realized that that's the position that they have to publicly take, because people, I've been saying this very openly on radio and been saying this for a long time. And first of all, when this whole war broke out, and I mean in the very first days, and the Russian advance, stalled, they didn't take Kiev, whatever. I remember saying, I was like, people are going to underestimate the Russian military, the Russian industrial complex, and the will of both Putin and those who support him, which is far more substantial inside of Russia than what you're led to believe in the West. Putin's popularity is far higher than anybody who just reads the New York Times would think. And I know they say he's a dictator, he doesn't have real elections and everything else. People like him. A lot of Russians actually like him and support him and think that he stands up for Russian interests, that he is a Russian nationalist. Now, isn't it interesting? Even me just saying that, because the way they try to, the way our own media, and honestly, not just Democrats, a lot of Republicans try to frame this issue, it's, you're a Putin apologist. No, I'm just describing the same way if I was an agency analyst and I was, back in the day at the CIA, right?
Yep.
And if I was writing up an assessment of this, I'd be like, we can think whatever we want about Putin. What's the truth of his support inside his own country? And people who were saying he was going to be ousted, his economy was going to be in tatters, the ruble was going to be destroyed, delusional. None of that has happened, okay?
None of it.
None of it. And that's what we were told in the beginning. So the people who knew so much were wrong about everything. This war has been grinding on. It's effectively, as you and I know, trench warfare. Literally in trenches, but they've got drones and they're
with
using
a little sprinkling of modern technology that makes it scary as hell, right?
Right. They've got drones that are flying in and blowing people up and dropping grenades on them, and obviously used a lot for just surveillance too, for the spotting, right? So now to do the spotting for the old school artillery, like World War I, World War II style artillery. I know it's more advanced now, but the basic ballistics, it's, fire a big shell that goes boom. But they can do the spotting and the assessing of what the targets are using drones and satellites and sophisticated technology. So, but you're in the same place, which is, okay, we're in a war of attrition effectively along a front with more advanced technology, but the actual battlefield lines look very similar to what they would have in different parts of the First World War, where we think of trench warfare as originating. Actually originated in the Boer War, as you and I know. It's a whole other thing in South Africa. But I think
let me just, I want to step in on that a
sure.
little bit, because one of the interesting things that for me is as now I don't know, I think ever since I've seen this shift or this focus, this attack on these nationalistic movements, right? I started saying, okay, well, where have we seen this before? And if you do go back and you start to think about the lead up to World War I, right? The lead up to World War II, there's some similarities, right? Where out of these collective calamities, right? These, what is it, 14, 15 million people annihilated in World War I, and this horrific entrenchment of just, supposed superpowers, and they're jockeying for position, economically within the structure of Europe and the emergence of all these new industrial countries. And then you all of a sudden, you see the same thing start to take place before World War II, where you start to see this nationalism emerge. In particular, this nationalism in Germany, some nationalism, obviously a new nationalism emerged out of Russia, right? When they got rid of the czars to the tune of Stalin and his crew. So I think, like what you were alluding to before, is the idea of nationalism is if it's spun in the right way, in the right context through propaganda, it actually becomes the enemy that you need to generate this kind of nefarious advancement of this Ukrainian-Russian conflict. Do you think are there similarities that you're seeing there too?
Well, I think that there's certainly been a tremendous focus on Ukrainian nationalism and Ukraine's borders at a time when other countries border, right? It's like we pick and choose. Some countries are allowed to be nationalistic and others are not. And it's not, and you go, well, hold on a second. Either this can be virtuous across the board for all nation states, or we're just not applying any sound principles. And in the case of Ukraine, like you see all these Americans, generally Democrats, not all, there's some Republicans too, with Ukrainian flags. I mean, these are people that couldn't find Ukraine on a map a couple of years ago, and probably some of them still couldn't if you just erased all the names. And yet they are Slavi-Ukraini, and they think that this is the most important battle that the world is facing right now. And this is going on at a time when the interest in our own southern border and the effective dissolution of border controls in a lot of EU countries, certainly here in the United States, we had 10 million plus illegals in a 4-year span under Biden. So on the one hand, the borders of Ukraine are inviolate. And the notion that they should give up any territory, they've already given up Crimea. I mean, this has already been happening, right? The notion that they should give up any land whatsoever is somehow a slap in the face to us, never mind to Ukraine. Like, we're supposed to be so outraged by this notion. Meanwhile, we have millions of people coming into our country illegally who are a drain on resources and a huge social and political challenge for the future. And
national security threat.
Right. And the same people who care so much about Ukraine, they care a lot more about Ukraine's borders than they care about U.S. borders. And people could say, oh, well, we can walk and chew gum and those are different things. No, because when you're talking about nation state interests and nationalism, right? It's just the fact you talk about nationalism, people go, oh, what is that? I mean, there's a book by, I think it's Yoram Hazony, The Virtue of Nationalism, that goes into how states, the same way that people taking care of that, like this, Dave, right? Like if you're hit, and there are other people who are hit, like you got to stop your bleed first, right? I mean, you're not helping anybody. I mean, Dave was a medic as well as a SEAL. You got to look to number one before you can be that, Overwatch, that assistance, that lifesaver to those around you. And I think that, put simply, like America needs a lot more me time and a lot less. And this is why also the USAID defunding that's gone on has been so popular broadly, especially in the Trump movement. But I think more generally, like, why are we funding this stuff all over the place? People say, oh, but what about this thing there? So hold on a second. We have a lot of needs in this country, and the country is not supposed to be run. Our treasury is not a global welfare program. And even if that's a small contingent of it, I think there's enough people who see that as, first of all, we got $36 trillion in debt. I mean, that's madness. But beyond that, like, where's the stop and start? And just one other thing, Dave, I think you're asking about the nationalism component of this. I think that and these leaders who are being banned, the one issue the borders issue actually matters a whole lot, because what unites a lot of these parties, especially in the European and American context, is, hold on a second, we are a people, we are not an economic zone, and we can't just have unrestricted non us, whatever that means, like people from other countries coming in here in huge numbers. And I think that the slow eradication of sovereignty for European countries and for America is a huge part of the backlash against the elites that have been pushing this non-nationalism. Oh, we're all collectivist ideology. And I think that there's a concern among them too, that people are angry about this. And the more they learn about it, the angrier they get, because now they're seeing the results of mass migration to Sweden, mass migration to Germany, mass illegal migration in the United States. Not good. These are not good things. And the people in charge promised us they'd be amazing.
All right, Buck, just to wrap it up, I got to hear your thoughts on the idea that really, I think, for me and you and people who are paying attention to this is the NATO question. So if you get an opportunity to sit in a room with Rubio and JD and the president, what do you tell them? Like, what options do we have? What is the kind of the go, no go criteria where we simply say, all right, that's it. We're done. We're not doing that. We're not staying in NATO. You put boots on the, Marcone puts boots on the ground. Brits put boots on the ground, which is kind of funny, but no offense, Brits, because I fought with you. Some of you guys are super hard, but probably it's been a little while. But what do you tell them that say, hey, we cannot go past this and continue to lead down the potentiality of a World War III? What are your thoughts you share with them?
Well, I have a lot of faith in this current team, I'll tell you. And so I've been in the position before where I feel like I'm, I consider myself like a coach. Maybe I'm up in the stands watching the game, but coaching the Trump administration. And I got a lot of thoughts to make things go better. With this national security team and with how they're approaching things so far, I'm doing a lot more clapping than I am criticizing. And that's just the truth. I mean, I align with them on this stuff. And some of these other folks, I mean, I'm not even sure if Bridge Colby's gotten through yet at DOD. I've known Bridge for 20 years. The guy's absolutely brilliant. Pete Hegseth has been a friend for 15 years. He is dialed in. Sean Parnell, a great friend, dialed in at DOD.
Joe Kent. Joe Kent's my favorite.
Who is that? Oh, Joe Kent. Yeah,
Joe Kent.
I mean, you've got smart guys, war fighters, people that see it, see it through realistic eyes. So on the NATO piece, I would just say, one, Trump getting NATO to commit to more spending and prepare themselves. It shouldn't be, the only reason that Germany's not going to get invaded by Russia or Poland's not going to get invaded, whatever, is because America is going to land like 82nd Airborne and, we're going to kick their asses or something. They should be able to put up a substantial fight themselves, such that it's unthinkable that we would have the kind of tumult, if you will, in Europe that we saw in the 20th century, right? So if we're going to be in NATO, and I know there are people that even have questions about whether that's worthwhile, we should also be honest. I mean, NATO is an anti-Russia alliance. I mean, I remember when I was in Afghanistan, it was a NATO mission, and everybody there, as you remember,
remember the ISAF? Everybody, we all wore the ISAF badges.
No one even really, unless you were there, people didn't even pay attention to this. It was a NATO mission in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Which is like, what? And NATO is kind of almost a proto-UN or something. It makes no sense. This is to stop Russia from, beating up on and invading NATO members. Ukraine is not a NATO member. And so I think that, the Article 5 of NATO, which is what would require the mutual defense, I think that as long as America is truly, and as long as America is in treaties where they say, if this happens, we will do the following, we do have to honor that. I think that that's important, but I don't think that we have to honor it forever, indefinitely, without looking at what are we really getting out of this. So, the line in the sand is Article 5. It is the joint defense component of the treaties, treaties that we're involved in with NATO. But I also think it's very clear. I mean, you know this better than most, Dave. The lesson of 20 years of war in the Middle East and South Asia is you don't just send your guys and gals to fight because you're fighting, and then you don't want to stop the fighting because what were you fighting for? And and that's where people, Ukraine is we see that lesson through the lens of Ukraine, I think, in a very profound way.
Well, my whole thing is just to tie it up is, I mean, I've got a lot of dead friends, and now it's me looking at their children in the face and saying, "Hey, your dad died for this very honorable thing, which was, a 20-year war in Iraq, which didn't get us anywhere, or a 20-year war in Afghanistan, which now we're actually paying the Taliban $40 million a week." I just, and you look at the numbers now, and you look at, I mean, anything from, 1 million to 1.5 million from both Ukraine and Russia. I don't see the American young men out there rogering up and wanting to go to war to defend something that, quite frankly, maybe shouldn't be defended in the first place on our let somebody else take the charge. And I'm not an isolationist by any stretch. I do believe we need to project power in order to maintain that the economic power and might that we are. But man, I definitely don't want to see, what's crazy is there's this massive, you've been following this too, I've been watching you post about it, this massive increase in people signing up for the military. And I think it has to do with Pete, right? And it has to do with this change and this pride and the president and come back. Yeah, I want to go serve. But here's the thing, man, is if you do this again, it's going to be a challenge to get young men out there to roger up to go die for some senseless war that fundamentally as Americans we don't support. But
I think that for a lot of people, what we see in Ukraine and what the Trump view of it, and the everybody who's voted for Trump, is we learned a very painful lesson as a country. Let's actually learn that lesson and be clear on that, right? And that's why when you brought up Starmer in the UK and these guys they're not sending troops to go muzzle to muzzle with Russians, but they have to say that, because if they won't say that, then it's very clear that our side that's saying, what's the game plan here, guys, has the better end of the argument, which is they have no game plan. The game plan is status quo, people getting chewed up on both sides and dying, when we all know that eventually it's just going to come down to where are the lines on the map drawn and who gets control of what, and then we all go back to living our lives. So that's where that's at.
100%. And I do have a theory about immigration and the future of those wars and those battle lines, but let's talk about that another time, brother.
Anytime, man. I hope that, sorry that it looks like I'm like a botanist here, but this is my makeshift studio. So,
it's really
very Miami. It's very Miami behind me, though.
I thought you were going to get on with some Lululemon or your little purse up front.
This is Lulu. I live in the Lulu. Dude, of course.
Dude, I love it. God bless you, brother. Well, hey, Buck, man, thank you so much for being our first guest, and also
anytime.
I can't tell you how proud I am to be part of the Clay and Buck Podcast Network, and again, man, you are one of the greats out there, and your confidence in me is overwhelming, and I can't thank you enough.
God bless, man. You're a dear friend, and I'm proud of you for stepping in here and starting a great program. And I know you're just going to do so well with some of the people that are familiar with Clay and Buck, and you're going to build it out way beyond too. So everybody wins. So thank you so much for answering the call.
Awesome. God bless you, buddy. Take care. I hope you're digging the show so far. I just really want to now just take the time and introduce you to our Patreon account. So you can go to Patreon and you look up at David Rutherford Show, and that's where we're going to be. We're going to have a real basic $2 entry and subscription fee to come on, where you will have unlimited access to pretty much all the different content we're going to post. Not only are you going to find the full segment of the show itself, clips, shorts, but we're also doing little Patreon additional, where we'll ask people from Patreon will ask us a question. We'll post those questions. Perhaps we're even going to have our Patreon followers. We're going to interview you and bring you on the show, and you'll have your own show with me on Patreon. We're going to deliver motivational live events every quarter or so, where not only I'll give on and talk about one of my motivational concepts I've been teaching for the past 30 years, but we're also going to have the Frog Logic Institute content where you're going to be able to come on, sign up, and take a full Frog Logic Concepts course that'll help you really get your motivation dialed in your fight against the negative insurgency. All right, so Jordy, what in your mind, what's going to make our Patreon special as opposed to the other ones out there? What do you think, bud?
Well, I'm especially fired up from all the content that we're doing about the Patreon. And the best thing about it is the Patreon is going to get better over time. And so starting out, $2 a month, less than coffee because of inflation nowadays, you're going to get unfiltered, unedited access to all of the content. Also, in the interviews that we do, there's always going to be a Patreon question, a question that only you guys can get on Patreon, always posted there for you to see some of the more in-depth questions that we want to ask people. And also, if there's ever a time that we have to edit anything to fit certain terms and conditions for some of these social media platforms, that will be unedited on Patreon. You'll get the full thing, no edits, straight to your headphones.
You're going to get the Metal Rut version. That's what you're going to get, right? You're going to get the King Diamond, the Yngwie Moinstein. You're going to get the original Master of the Puppets Metallica Rut on Patreon. So don't miss out. Tell all your friends that this is the place to come for the flashbang of truth. This is the place to come where you're going to get the information that's going to help you fight the negative insurgency in your life and get out there and kick some ass. So Jordy and I are super fired up. We can't wait to see you over there. God bless you and hoo-yah. Well, I'll tell you what, man, there are not many people that can deliver succinct thoughts in a meaningful way like Buck Sexton did. Please, if you can, reach out and follow the Clay and Buck show. It's one of the best conservative podcasts and radio shows in the world. I mean, they are delivering it day in and day out. Really at the tip of the spear. They have great guests. They have great people on a regular basis. Hell, I mean, Clay was just playing golf with the president last week. So they are definitely connected at the highest level. So give them a shout. And again, to you, Clay and Buck, man, I'm so happy to be a part of your network. It's a dream come true for Jordy and I. We just really appreciate it. All right. You as a listener, we can't thank you enough. We really feel privileged, me in particular, to be back on the microphone in support of America, man, in support of the ideals that built this culture, that built this country. And you have my word that that's what I'm going to be dedicated to. I'm going to do my damnedest to really flush out the ideas in their totality, to be not just impassioned by or passionate about these concepts, but to really be thoughtful and to be intelligent about the way we source our information. We come up with the context of the stories and really helping you be more informed. I mean, that's our core mission right there, is to give you the information that compels your courage in order for you to really step into the fight, if you will, against those negative insurgencies that are desperate to tear down our way of life. If you could, for us, we would really appreciate it if you followed us on every platform out there, for YouTube, Rumble, Patreon, TikTok, what am I forgetting? Instagram, Facebook. It's at David Rutherford Show. On X, it's at D Rutherford Show. My personal handles on all those platforms are at Team Frog Logic. David Rutherford at Team Frog Logic. We'll be posting there constantly. Jordy is a master at delivering all kinds of tidbits of information that you can like and share with your family members, with your friends who are seeking some kind of positive influence or positive information. That's our mission too, is to help you be able to consume this content and share this content. We ask that you share it and use it and take it in any way you want and deliver it out to the masses. We're happy that you do that for us. But again, your ability to subscribe and tell friends, and then to leave us comments out there. I mean, y'all know the way these damn algorithms work on TikTok. So we need your help to get out there and for our voice to be heard. So we would really appreciate that. As it comes down to Patreon, one of the things that we really want to make sure you do is to join. We'd appreciate the $2 a month, but there you're going to have all kinds of additional content. We just know you'll love it. It's everything from the show chopped up. It's extras on all the interviews that we do. We're really going to focus on giving information that support young men in their development. So all of that's going to be there. I'm going to be doing live motivational events every so often on there. We're going to be delivering some motivational education, some frog logic concepts from the Frog Logic Institute there. We're going to be doing tactical videos. We're going to be doing EDC drops, the whole thing you'd expect from a knuckle dragger like me, and maybe a little bit more, right? So once again, we're just so grateful for you and your willingness to join our show and to become members of our team and our family. We just love you so much. God bless you. And don't forget, I'm your flashbang of truth. This is the David Rutherford Show.